all of you. I want to do a little business before we begin with the formal part of the program. One thing is, I'm supposed to tell you that we are being recorded tonight. It's being videotaped by the Missoula Community Access Television. Yay! As part of its Media Assistance Grant Program to nonprofit organizations. And for more information about the grant program, please contact MCAT at 542-6228. And thank you. For your comfort, it's good to know that there are facilities for bio breaks. There's a facility on this level, so if you need the accessible bathroom, just go this way. And if you can manage stairs, go down here or at the stairs at the back. Child care is downstairs as well. And then when we're all done here talking and we're thirsty and hungry, we can go for cookies and something and punch downstairs, also where the children are. And anyone who's speaking tonight, when we're done having something to wet your whistle, come back up at about 10 of 8 so that we can process what we did. Timing, this is really important. Everybody who's going to get up is going to have the appropriate amount of time to say what they want. So you got to watch Robin right here. She's raising her hand. She has colored cards. If you see the yellow card from her, you've got 30 seconds to wrap it up. If you see the red one, cut. And so, thank you so much. And then let's kind of move into where we are in the evening. This is a little prayer for us all. We're gathered here to bring good things into the world, home and security for ourselves and our neighbors. Each of us needs a home. Now, this room is filled with people who are striving to find that safe, loving, stable place. Some of us actively wanting and seeking it right now. Some of us dreaming of it. And some of us living it as well as we can. And we are also a room full of people with many faith and cultural backgrounds. Yet this evening, we've got a shared sacred text. Can you guess what it might be? You might be surprised. Our sacred text is our shared stories. The stories we'll hear tonight about our efforts to create that place we call home. So let us each in our own way honor our shared stories with deep attention and consideration and learn from each other. So I ask this blessing for all who are here tonight and for our beloveds beyond the walls of this room. May we be blessed with love, stability, and a place to call home. May we work together in holy intention to create these possibilities in our town. Now, may our hope increase. May we find success in working together. And with gratitude to divine presence, let us say, Amen. Amen. Amen.
Well, good evening. And let's give a round of applause. Good energy in the house tonight. And so I wanted to just introduce myself. My name is Todd Solinger, and I work for Missoula Works, and I'm the project manager for the Get It Done crew. Missoula Works is a staffing agency, and it's part of the Missoula Interfaith Collaborative. So,
and my name is Erin Miller, and I work for Forward Montana. We build political power for young people across the state and here in Missoula. And I'm also a member of the Missoula Home Coalition, and we are honored to be your chair for this evening. Thank you for being here with us. We are here tonight because our Missoula City Council will be considering housing solutions within the next month that will have a huge impact on how many of our neighbors will be able to afford a home in our communities. Those folks living without a home, those living with constant fear of eviction from their homes, and all renters, like myself, are wanting to have a stronger voice in housing discussions. That's why we're here, to build power with all stakeholders, particularly those who have been systematically disenfranchised in our housing system, oftentimes for reasons beyond their control. We know life is busy. Perhaps you have one job, or two, or three. Perhaps you have little ones or family members that you care for. Perhaps you're diligently working to finish that degree, or simply hoping next month's paycheck will last you. You're here tonight to get things done for our community. You're here to build true communal power. So give yourself a hand.
So this is truly what local politics can look like. We are everyday people that come from a broad cross-section of Missoula, coming together with our public officials to address matters that are pressuring us. This is what bridges and leaders of a program of Missoula Interfaith Collaborative is all about. We want to thank our elected officials for being here. Will you all stand up? And to have you here and so eager to work with us is just a pleasure. With everyday citizens is really important to us, so thank you again.
So we consider this assembly to be a public action. Tonight we're committing to acting publicly but in a truly relational way. The issues we care about aren't what unite us, rather it's our stories, relationships, and connections that gather us here.
So tonight we will do a roll call asking you to represent your organization. We'll hear stories from people impacted by the lack of housing that's affordable for people with varying levels of income. We'll learn about housing recommendations developed by the city's Housing and Community Development Office. We'll ask our public officials to respond to our solutions, priorities that have already been included into the city's recommendations. So 3 cheers for that. Finally, we'll make commitments to each other that will keep us working together forward.
And we're going to ask you to applaud a lot. So get your hands or feet or whatever it is. Okay, so let's get this started. We'll do this by asking every group and representative from your organization, once called, to stand up if you're able or comfortable, or just raise your hands high, letting your presence and the many diverse aspects of Missoula be known.
When we call your name, your group's names, we want to hear from you. For example, when I say St. Paul Lutheran Church, I want to hear you jump up and say, woo! Yeah, anybody? I need to hear from you. Let's try it again. St. Paul Lutheran Church. Okay, so I know you can do better.
Okay, so the first organization we are going to call are those who are due-paying members of the Missoula Interfaith Collaborative. And these organizations and faith communities have been working alongside MIC and their various programs for the last several years. MIC is very grateful for the partnership. So, one more time for St. Paul Lutheran.
No. Now bring your own piano.
First United Methodist.
The Missoula Food Bank.
Oakville Mindfulness Center.
First Presbyterian Church.
The Missoula Student Association.
Heart Shalom. Holy Spirit Episcopal.
Mountain Home MT.
Francis Xavier Parish. Limitless Ministries. Greek Orthodox. University Congregational Church.
Welcome back.
Blessed Trinity Catholic Parish.
Missoula Friends Community.
And Atonement Lutheran. Alright, we're finishing up. Now for good friends and affiliates of MIC, we have the Missoula Home Coalition.
Forward MD.
Franklin to the Fort Neighborhood.
Partnership Health Center.
Missoula Urban Indian Center.
Missoula Community Development Corporation.
NeighborWorks Montana.
Family Promise.
NAMI.
NWMP.
Mineral County. It's all Mineral County.
Missoula Housing Authority.
The ASUM Renters Center.
League of Women Voters.
Crosswind Sober Living.
South Montana.
Alright, two more. Missoula County Health Department.
And Revive Church.
Okay, so thank you for showing up for our second Voices for Housing Assembly. I'll now turn it over to Topper Lindhair, an active community member and resident of Franklin to the Fort neighborhood, who will share our collective story about the issue of affordable housing and how it has brought us all together.
Hello, good evening. I do indeed live in Franklin to the Fort, as my hat attests to. I live there with my wife, our son, and our dog. I also remembered that he would want me to let you know we also have a fish. Forgot to write that down earlier. But I'm here tonight because the feeling I get every month when my family sits down to write a check for our mortgage payment. It's a tense feeling, making that check each month. I felt it as a renter, feel it now as a homeowner. And that uncomfortable, kind of tense feeling, looking at our financial situation, is why I'm here tonight. Housing in Missoula, compared to the average income, is making it harder and harder to live in our community. Based on the World Wealth Report from last year, this imbalance has resulted in low and median income Missoulians paying too much for housing, and thus living paycheck to paycheck. People are struggling to pay for food, medication, and daycare. People with criminal records or poor credit are unable to get into housing. Median income Missoulians are having to move out of Missoula to find an affordable place to live. That report states that countywide, there are over 17,000 households, it's 41% of the county, that are cost burdened, meaning they pay more than 30% of their income for housing. Within the city, 75% of renters that make less than $35,000 per year are cost burdened. These statistics show the scale of the problem. So we, MIC, as a collective of faith communities, community members, and neighbors, engaged up to 3,000 people over the past year and a half. connected, and we're uniting our stories, our voices. And the stories from our community deeply confirmed what we read in the research. There are major social and economic shifts underway in our community, and our ability as everyday people to afford to live here is at risk. Luckily, thankfully, we have a city and county government that take this matter very seriously. The City Office of Housing and Community Development, represented tonight by Aaron Pehan, was created and staffed to research housing options that would work for Missoula. Their recommendations will be reviewed by the City Council very soon. And we have been doing work since our last housing assembly in February. Can you raise your hand if you were at the housing assembly in February? Thank you. Since then, we've collected your feedback and your stories. We researched concerns and suggestions alongside the Missoula Home Coalition and the At-Risk Housing Coalition. Raise your hand if you attended one of the meetings with us in the past few months. Next, we refined our choices and voted to uphold three main solution categories we want to see included in the city's recommendations. The City Housing Office has responded proactively in incorporating many of our solutions into the City Housing Plan recommendations. It's been awesome collaborating in this way. We want to thank Erin and her staff for working with us. And we're still asking that the city respond to our platform, where if we're going to truly move the needle on issues such as housing, we need to do more than talk about our problems or policies. We need to commit to putting the policies we're presenting into action. We need to build a strong and powerful network of everyday citizens who are closely involved and intentionally connected to each other for the betterment of our community. As a former language arts teacher, I deeply believe in the power of stories to connect us. And I'm looking forward to spending some time listening to a few more stories and connecting to each other on a deeper level. Jana Staton is a core team member with the First United Methodist in town, and she's going to help us set the stage for some reflection.
The topic of homes that people can't afford to rent or buy affects us all in one way or another. Some of us have been homeless or are homeless right now and know what that insecurity feels like in the pit of the stomach. Some of us have had a call from a son or daughter sleeping in a car 2,000 miles away asking for help. Some of us are struggling to buy a home and finding that Missoula's wages don't come close to matching housing costs. Let's take a moment to pause, reflecting on our own experiences of how we've connected with the struggles to find home. I'll give you just a minute to kind of look inside on that. Now we're going to hear from three community members pressured by the lack of housing that is affordable in Missoula on an everyday basis. First up for sharing is Alan Claremont, who's facing too many barriers to housing, including credit.
Hi, my name is Alan. I'm here to share a small part of my story with you. It may sound familiar to some. 4 years ago, I had to start my life completely over. As some of you may know, it's not easy. Whether it's from a divorce, starting a new career, moving somewhere new, or even returning to the community from incarceration. Well, that was me 4 years ago, starting completely over, going through all those things at once. Since then, I've been blessed to rent a place over in the Franklin Ford neighborhood for the last 3.5 years. I've had numerous roommates, some good, some bad, to help support the cost of, or help supplement the cost of living. I have acquired my subcontracting license and have started my own business welding and metal fabricating, while also working a full-time job on the side. The first couple of winters when I first started were slow, so I had to open up a couple credit accounts to get by. I have steady work now since then, and want to move forward in life and buy my first house. Something I can call my own. I honestly love what I do for work, but I don't like having to work so much as I do. It seems I have to, but just to get by. My goals now are to pay off my credit cards, to raise my credit score back up. That way I'll be able to have a better interest rate on my mortgage. I budget my finances every month and stay within my means most of the time. By October, I plan on having all my credit paid off and start saving for a down payment on the house. I have overcome many barriers and adversities. I know there are many of you facing the same barriers that I have experienced, and that's why I'm here telling my story, and hope you will do the same. Thank you.
Our second story is from Dave Armerding, who's a landlord in Missoula. He wants to help, and he needs a way to do that effectively. Dave?
Landlords don't always get a lot of applause. I want to tell you a little bit about myself and how I make decisions. I grew up in a Christian home in Danwood, New Jersey. And I found out that I had parents that were pretty unique, and I was really blessed with them. They taught me about the Ten Commandments, but they didn't tell me those were rules to live by. They told me they were principles for good relationships. They said, love your God, your Creator, and love your neighbor as you instinctively love yourself. Those relational concepts never left me. And damage caused by not living by them, that doesn't leave you either. The faith in my family was a generational faith. It started with my great-grandfather who immigrated from Germany. I remember taking trips into New York City to visit my grandparents, who lived on the second story of a building that was called the Jerry McCauley Mission. It was located on the Lower East Side in the Bowery. And in the 1950s and 60s, when my grandfather was superintendent there, he served men who had served in World War II, in the Korean War, who had been estranged from their families and were wrestling with demons and their addictions. And that was an example to me of who I should become. I loved my grandfather. And as a teenager, that mission moved to Lafayette Street, where it still is today. I would go in on Saturday nights and visit with hippies, homeless hippies that came up from Greenwich Village looking for a meal. And we would share together, and my parents would tell me, you should invite these guys home. I was 14 years old, and these guys were 22. But they enjoyed going sledding down hills and golf courses in New Jersey, and they just loved being in a family situation. I think that my faith has driven me as a landlord to offer second chances. And I get burned once in a while doing that. But I don't know a landlord who doesn't get burned once in a while. So I want you to know that I support our local governments. I support our faith communities for looking out for those in our community who can't look out for themselves when they see a risk.
So maybe we could work on cloning Dave. Our next story is from Rebecca Pettit, who hopes to buy a home and in that process has learned about the power of organizing.
went to the University of Montana a couple of times, and I now actually work for MIT. But I'm up here, though, because I have witnessed the powerful beginnings of community organizing in my neighborhood. And you probably heard this, because Franklin the Fort has been mentioned several times. Yay! Topper just hasn't made me a hat yet. I got this up here. This is Franklin the Fort. If you guys live in the Franklin the Fort area, Topper does have a clipboard. We have some powerful things happening in the Franklin the Fort. We would love to get you involved. It's awesome. As a resident of the Franklin the Fort, though, I have been inspired as well as really saddened by how hard my neighbors worked in order just to live there. There are many people, I'm sure we all know, who've made the decision actually to leave Missoula because they want to get higher paid jobs or more affordable housing. And in my case, I'm staying here because this is my community. This is where my family lives, this is where my friends live, and I want to raise my kids in the place that I grew up. This is my home, so I want to be here. Unfortunately, like so many people, I'm not building the equity you get in buying a house here. I'm a renter. I'm a good renter. I pay $1,400 a month, and that doesn't include water or electricity. It also doesn't include any of my other living expenses. And just for context, my parents bought a house here about 25 years ago, and they bought that house for $80,000. There's no way I could buy a house for $80,000. And their house is worth significantly more now. And I was talking to my mom just in preparation for this, and I could tell that my mom was really sad just by the fact of struggling about housing. And she said, well, Rebecca, don't worry. Like, when your dad and I die, you're going to get our house. And then I thought, I don't want my parents to have to die in order for me to become a homeowner. Really? Many of us in this room are in the same position, or literally with no future of home ownership. And so oftentimes, I feel really fatalistic about this, actually. Just thinking about the cost of housing, and I just think, oh, it's just something that I have to deal with. But why? Why do I have to deal with this? You know, we're at the beginning of building something really powerful in the Franklin the Fort neighborhood. Our neighbors are actually talking to each other about really important things. Like buying a home, like living there, like the cost of child care, and aging and still affording to be able to live in that neighborhood. And while we might have different pressures, there's a common foundation, and that's we can't live in isolation. So if you live in the Franklin the Fort neighborhood, I urge you to come and talk with us. And I'm hopeful that Alan and I, Franklin the Forters, will one day both be homeowners. And hopefully we'll be homeowners in the Franklin the Fort neighborhood. So thank you.
The stories we've just heard can help strengthen our social fabric as long as they're woven together with those experiencing similar pressures. Holding on to what affects us alone or shouting at others out of anger just continues to feel the divisiveness and isolation we're experiencing. And it's literally killing us, and it's ripping our communities apart. Furthermore, when we engage each other's stories, our eyes are open to the lived experiences that cause us to shift our ideals and act on behalf of not only ourselves, but our neighbors too. I'm going to ask you to take 2 minutes to ponder personally how these stories from your Missoula neighbors have affected you. And then you'll be sharing your thoughts with the neighbor sitting next to you. Specifically, in your own time, I'd like you to contemplate, how is the lack of housing that's affordable, that people can afford to buy or rent, impacting you or the people you love? And what are you willing to change in your life so that you can be part of the solution and not part of the problem? And just as an example, I live in the University District, which is somewhat well known. If I want to see everyone housed in Missoula, I know I'll have to get used to the reality that more people will be taking up more space in and around me and my neighborhood. I will have to change. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes. And I'll help keep the time, and then I'll remind you to turn to your neighbors. So just take a couple of minutes to think about those two questions. How is the lack of affordable housing impacting you or people you know? What are you willing to change? Your 2 minutes are up. Now you can talk. It's time to turn to a neighbor. Again, the questions are, how is this affecting you and what will you change?
So, okay, I'm going to bring it back in. I can see we all have lots of stories and lots of talk. That's awesome. So let's give ourselves a big hand for sharing our stories. And I want to thank Deanna for leading us through that reflection. So I'd like to take a moment to share a little bit of my own personal story on that reflection. Me and my wife have been in the Family Promise Program. Me and my wife and my family have been in the Family Promise Program for almost 10 months. We have gotten into an apartment just as in today. It's been a struggle. It's been a struggle. I'm not even here to kid you. So in order to see that others don't experience the same stuff that we went through, and what we're doing to help with the homelessness, and as far as what we're doing, me and my wife, we're committing to our sobriety and coming out to things like this and helping the community. And it's a blessing every day that I wake up and I'm not sick, and I can help others and change their lives. So with that, next week. And working with the MIC, it's just a great thing. Next, we'll move into an engagement with Erin Pehan, the Director of the Housing and Community Development Office. I'd like to invite both Erin and Kai Peterson to the front. Kai works for Neighbor Works and has been instrumental in assembling the Missoula Home Coalition, an organization of housing advocates we've been working alongside with for the past several months.
Okay. Wonderful. Hello, Erin. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight. We, as many of you in the room know, we've been working closely with Erin and her office on bringing the suggestions and the needs of this community and this group to the table and trying to integrate them as much as we can into the policies that are drafted and going in front of city council. So again, thank you so much for your ongoing work with all of us and the hard work you're doing for housing policies. We're going to go through the priorities that have been developed through this effort and talk about where those fit within the current plans and get some feedback and insight from Erin on where we fit with these suggestions and these policies today. So you all have a blue sheet in front of you that lays out exactly what we're going to be going through, and I'm going to try to be a little bit expeditious in how I explain these and make sure that Erin has a good amount of time to talk to us about where they fit in. So the first one, and it's first for a reason, because it really has been the top priority that has come out of all of the work that's happened in this room and beyond. And that is to address barriers for renters. And there are 4 specific programs and approaches that this group is bringing to the table and really wants to see addressed. The first is establishing a rent guarantee fund. We'd also like to see a landlord liaison position established. We'd like to develop a centralized credit and background check system, and expand access to resources and legal assistance for Missoula tenants. And the specific ask here is that the city support these efforts and help to identify and provide funding for these efforts. So, Erin, talk to us about how this fits into the plan as you see it.
Awkward passing of the mic. So yeah, we focused quite a bit on how we support renters and homeowners, but specifically in this context, renters throughout the housing policy. And just to give you guys a little bit of context and background in how I approach this work and my team approach this work is I spent about the last 10 years of my career as the director of the Poverello Center, so I have a really intimate knowledge of how housing affordability impacts those making some of the lowest incomes in our community, and even more importantly, folks who have significant barriers to housing and are trying to overcome those barriers. It should not take Todd 10 months to find housing in our community, and Rebecca should not be paying $1,400 a month to house her family in an apartment or a home that is safe and meets their needs. And so we definitely have room to grow, and we have a lot of work we need to do in our rental market. Our housing policy recommendations do call for an array of tools to support renters in our community, and those recommendations are twofold. They directly support renters in our community, but they also build capacity for organizations in our community that advocate for renters, just like this body. So folks who can provide legal service, who can help people who are unlawfully or unrightfully evicted from their units to assert their rights, to help tenants better understand what their rights are in the state of Montana as a tenant or as a renter. We are also specifically recommending the areas that are called for or requested by this group, which are the landlord liaison, really looking at how we can better support folks with barriers to housing, the rent mitigation fund or risk mitigation fund, to support landlords like Dave who do want to do the right thing, but are taking risks, and we want to support them in that decision. And so we have worked those recommendations directly into our policy recommendations.
Fantastic. And specifically when the policy is released to the public, so people have a feel for where to find these things. It is a pretty hefty document. There's a lot to figure out with housing policy. My understanding is that's primarily in the consumer support section, correct? Okay, so look for that. Okay, the second request and area that we are advocating for tonight is to recognize that in order to address the huge range of issues around affordability and homes in our community, we are going to need to put forth some money to make some of this work happen. And so we are asking that the city establish a housing trust fund. And we have some characteristics of that fund that we would like to make sure are incorporated so that that fund can be as effective and well put to use as possible. So here are some of the things that we'd like to see. We'd like to see a fund that draws from a broad range of funding sources and income streams. That the funding should be recurring and ongoing, not just a one-time fee fund. That funding strategies should be both short-term, things that we have access to and we can draw from now, and things that may take a longer time to build support for it and build the ability to access. And then we would like to make sure that the funding sources used are structured to avoid increasing or exacerbating the problems of housing affordability. We know one of our primary income streams as a city is property taxes, and so we're acutely aware of the challenges of raising funds and maintaining affordability. And we want to make sure that when we do go forward with having funding for these programs, that we're taking that into account. So a couple of things that we think the city could focus on and we would like to see are that the city use good data and understanding what the funding impacts are on low and moderate income people, that we look for legal expertise on what viable funding options are for our community, and that the city and others support access to existing property tax relief programs. So we'll stop there and talk a little bit about the trust fund and its funding sources.
Yeah, thank you. So your recommendations in this area are completely in alignment with where we see the Affordable Housing Trust Fund going in our community. Affordable housing trust funds are complicated, especially in communities like ours, in states like ours that have tax structures that really limit our ability to generate revenue. And so it is a complicated equation of seeding an affordable housing trust fund, and to do that as a municipality in any substantial way, we would need to lean on property taxes to get that done. And so I think, at least today, as it stands today, and so I think the creation of an affordable housing trust fund has to balance that reality, and it has to be incredibly diverse. We have to pull in as many different sources as we can to mitigate the impact on property owners. I think that we also really want to focus initially on strategizing and more effectively using the funds we have at our disposal today. So the city has resources like federal entitlement funds, tax increment financing, brownfield funds, infrastructure funds that we already use in the development of housing across the community. And so we can prioritize those funds to get the most bang for our buck. And our initial step in establishing an affordable housing trust fund will be to align and more strategically use the money that we have available to us today, while we have that conversation with the community about what fundraising and what seeding an affordable housing trust fund looks like in the future.
We do have one additional piece related to this housing trust fund, and it's about how will that fund be governed and managed. And what we are asking is that the fund be governed by a diverse committee that has decision-making authority, and will review and define funding priorities at least biannually, and that the committee should be made up of a representative distribution of homeowners, renters, and income levels. How it's going to be governed and what you're envisioning for that.
Yeah. All I can say is this fund and these monies would belong to the community, so it makes sense that it should be governed by the community. And we would anticipate needing diverse membership to help us set and align goals based on our progress, and to help us really be thoughtful about our benchmarks and when we may need to pivot and shift to something else in the community. And so I think that's very much in alignment with how we would be governed. Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, so our third area of focus is on inclusive, diverse, and equitable housing types. And this is a big category. There's a lot of different work happening in this area. We have three specific areas of focus and requests. And we'll take them in turn. So the first is to make changes to existing regulations, such as modifying setbacks, parking, and regulatory requirements that will help us increase the potential for diverse housing types across the entire city and increase opportunities for individuals of different economic backgrounds to meet their housing needs. So where do these types of changes fit into the plan? Just the first one. Yeah, we're going to do one at a time for these. Okay, perfect.
So our housing policy recommendations, and just to provide, again, a bit of context, these recommendations were created out of an initial vision from a housing policy steering committee, and that housing policy steering committee was made up of 26 stakeholders across our community, folks with our local unions, realtors, private, nonprofit, affordable housing developers, and market rate developers, folks from the university, folks from different employment sectors, and we really wanted to look at what common themes were impacting both housing supply and housing affordability. And regulatory barriers came up time and time again in that conversation. So that transitioned into a process where we established multiple technical working groups, where we brought in people with specific expertise in these areas. And so as it applied to some of those regulatory barriers. Those were folks in city and county zoning and planning officers. They were folks who worked in the private sector as well, kind of ground truthing some of our recommendations. And I think what resulted from that process is a really thoughtful, balanced approach to acknowledge that regulations serve a purpose in our community. They protect our safety and our well-being. They protect the character of our neighborhoods. But they also do impact affordability, and that's a very real balance that we have to maintain as a community. And I think the eventual recommendations continue to make sure that Missoula remains a place that people want to live and want to be in, but they also look at how we can reduce regulatory barriers that don't impact safety and well-being and character to help increase supply and basic housing affordability across the community. So the second piece of this push for inclusivity and diversity is a call for the city to continue to consider inclusionary zoning as a housing tool for our community, which would require a portion of new construction to be affordable to people with low and moderate income. And to do this, we'd like there to be a working group that includes representation from affordable housing work groups and advocates, among other stakeholders, to continue to evaluate inclusionary zoning as an affordable housing tool for Missoula and to report out to the public annually. So where does this fit in? Yeah, so inclusionary zoning can be an incredibly powerful tool in ensuring that a consistent supply of true affordable housing continues to come on the market, especially in communities where the average median home sales price has far exceeded what is affordable for folks making 100%, 120% of area median income. We don't think inclusionary zoning should ever come off the table as a tool that can work in the community of Missoula. We did a pretty thorough analysis, and based on that analysis, we determined that today the conditions aren't quite right for inclusionary zoning in Missoula, and that's a good thing. That means that our housing prices aren't quite high enough, that we're not quite escalating at a rate where inclusionary zoning will have a positive impact, but it won't have unintended consequences of driving the market. That's something we need to watch carefully, though, and we need to continue to analyze and come back to, because if the market conditions do present themselves, we need to be prepared to consider inclusionary zoning as an option. The benefit of the housing policy recommendations that we will be rolling out is that it builds the necessary scaffolding or infrastructure that would need to be in place for any successful inclusionary zoning policy to be effectively rolled out. And so while we continue to do that analysis, that scaffolding is being built. And so next year or the year after, if we come back and determine that is a tool that the community is ready to and does need to implement, we can take steps in that direction. Great. One more, and we're going to try to move ourselves quickly through this one because we're using up our time. But this one is really, really important. Through all of these conversations, and as a community and the folks in this room, trying to really balance these really tough challenges for our community. Where does new development happen? How does it happen? How do we ensure that homes are affordable? We continue to see the need for our community to engage in these conversations, and we would like to see the city initiating more community conversations with the explicit goal of finding opportunities to improve options for homes people can afford and increasing the diversity of housing types across all of Missoula's neighborhoods while balancing with these other community needs. So, sure. We're trying to. So my answer is Jan is just going to come everywhere with me and say what she just said up there. No, the conversation needs to be had, and I think it's probably the most important conversation that Missoula is going to have in the coming years of what does this look like. We cannot meet our housing demand with the land that we have available to us unless we start thinking about how we increase the diversity of housing types and how we develop in a more compact pattern. And so I think it's a conversation we need to have.
another minute. First of all, to really acknowledge and cheer for all of the work that has already been done. These recommendations are being brought forward and will be discussed within the city government as part of the draft policy. So congratulations to everybody for the work you've done so far, and again, thanks to Aaron. And one thing we want to really highlight is just to ask Aaron, through this whole process with all of the stakeholders she's engaged with, how has the work that's been done by this group influenced the policy to date?
Yeah, just really briefly, ultimately this policy will be more thoughtful and more comprehensive because of your engagement and because of the recommendations that this group brought forward, and for that we are incredibly grateful. I am, by career and training, a grassroots organizer that is relatively new to this bureaucratic world of government. And it's just so thrilling for me to see the civic engagement that our community holds and the power that that civic engagement can have on direct policy development. And it's equally exciting for me to be involved in a city government with elected officials who truly listen, who are at the table, and just as excited about this level of civic engagement as the folks advocating for policy changes are. And so I think our community is incredibly unique, and I think we're incredibly lucky to have a dynamic that is truly collaborative in that sense.
Thank you, Kaya and Ethan. Let's give one more round of applause. I know you're... This is what it can look like when powerful and effective citizens work really well with local government, right? Yeah, right. We are at the time where we get to call on our elected officials and ask our city council members, mayor, and one county commissioner to come up here one at a time and just talk to us a little bit about their thoughts on these recommendations. I know that this is a little formal having them come one at a time, but bear with me because it's important to be able to hear their voices when they come. You all have heard everything that we've been talking about. We've engaged over 3,000 people, and we came together to bring these solutions to the city and to you. You've seen how the City Office of Housing has responded proactively, incorporating many of these solutions into the housing policy. And we're going to ask each of you to come up one by one to answer a question that you've already been told. That we want to know, do you support these solutions as they've been incorporated in the recommendations for the city housing plan? Which solutions do you support, which don't you? And just a brief explanation of why. Each of you will have a minute to answer because I have a lot of you and we're on the time crunch, so I apologize. I know it's not nice to ask just a minute, but Councilman Barney, Mayor Aiken, and Commissioner Slotnick, you all get 2 minutes. And we do have our amazing timekeeper will let you know yellow part means 15 seconds, red part means you're done, and I will work on cutting you off as I'm able. And just to note, we did speak with everyone beforehand, and it would be illegal to ask for an official vote in this meeting. That's not what we're asking for. We're just asking for a public response to the solutions that we're proposing. So I'd like to start with Councilwoman Cares. Do you want me to remind you? So just again, the question. Do you support these solutions as they've been incorporated into the recommendations of the city housing plan? Which do you, which don't you? And then just a brief explanation. Thanks. Do you hear me?
Yeah. You talk.
There you go. Thank you. Thanks for having us. I support the inclusion of these pieces as they are adopted into as they are to be presented in the housing policy, including all that we discussed this evening.
Oh, you don't even need your minute.
I know, that's why they only gave me 1 minute. I just thought it was... Okay. That's gone. Thanks for having us today, and thank you for your continued work around this topic. I think that you've all done really good work to help provide nuance and additional depth to the suite of housing policies that we as City Council will analyze in the coming weeks. As I said in my poorly accepted pledge a moment ago, I do think that these pieces, as they're included in the housing policy, are really important and good, and will support their continued inclusion in the policy. I wanted to share that I think there's still significant work to do on this. I hope you will continue to show up for your values in our community by coming to City Council when we vote on these housing policies. I hope you will continue to show up for your values in our community by participating in conversations about equitable development across neighborhoods. I too live in Franklin before and find that an incredibly important piece of this discussion. And I hope that you will continue to show up for your values in our community by participating in conversations about moving to the next increment of density within neighborhoods. These will not be easy lifts, but together I think that we can get somewhere. Thank you.
Thank you for your support, Councilman Harris. Next is Councilman Rollins.
Hey, thank you all for having me. I really appreciate all of the work that you guys do. I think that it's invaluable to the community to have people in the nonprofit world and the private sector share their thoughts and concerns as well. Affordable housing has always been a very important issue to me since I've been on council. I've definitely made some would call them controversial votes on some issues that I think maybe further the lack of affordable housing in this community. That's why I definitely got a little bit of a shellacking when I didn't support putting the open space bond on the ballot. But that was just because of my belief of what impact that would have on affordable housing. So with that being said, I think you guys have done a lot of great work here. I support nearly all of the recommendations, depending on the funding mechanism, as you guys have already addressed. I certainly love subject matter number 3, the deregulation and less restrictive zoning. I think that is great work. I've got yellow, so I'll hurry up here. I think that's going to be huge for the affordable housing market in general. And I got a chance to meet with Ms. Kay and Mayor Ian last week, and I'm looking forward to working with them on those areas. So thank you all very much for having me, and thank you for your work, and keep it up.
Hey, tell me I just want to get your hard answers. This is my job up here. So I heard your support of number 3, the inclusive, diverse, and equitable housing types and locations. And so can you just give us a quick 30-second answer about renter barrier solutions and establishing the Missoula Housing Trust Fund?
Absolutely. I get extra time.
You do. You get extra time.
I appreciate that. So yeah, depending on the funding mechanism right now, as we've heard, that our only funding mechanism really is property taxes, and I can tell you personally that we have a very tight budget. And the only way that we're going to be able to achieve some of these right now with the funding mechanisms available is by raising property taxes. And again, I wouldn't support those if it required a raise of property taxes, because I do think that's a part of the problem.
Great. Okay. Thank you. So looking for diverse funding sources is the real message. Great. Thank you. Councilwoman Harris. So again, do you support the solutions? Which do you support? Which don't you, and an explanation of why?
I do support all of the solutions that you've discussed. I would just say I share Aaron's concern that we need to be thoughtful with the inclusionary zoning piece. But I would very much think that we need to engage landlords and provide more renter assistance, and the housing trust fund, I think, is an option that will benefit us a lot in the long run. On that number 3 piece, I think that as some others have brought up, we've heard a lot about the tension between the need for more affordable housing and the impact of infill development on existing neighborhoods. And I think that's especially in Franklin's report, that is a topic that we need to have those tough conversations with our neighbors on. And we have so many great representatives from that neighborhood here, so I look forward to having those conversations, and I want to be part of it and help you out with it, because I know that will be something that we can get over that barrier if we try.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me here. For me, okay. First of all, I just want to take a moment and welcome you all to St. Paul's. This is actually my home church, so it's lovely to see all of you here tonight. And thank you, St. Paul's, for opening the doors to all of us for this important conversation. I do support these tenants, or planks, I guess you'd say, and I'm excited to see how they are incorporated in the overall housing policy. I want to thank the work that MASC and all of you did to create these really concrete
practical solutions that I think will add a really important component to the larger overall housing policy, which I know myself and the rest of the council is waiting on bated breath to finally see, but we know that these kind of overall impactful changes do take time. And so thank you for engaging, thank you for showing up, and thank you for giving creative ideas. And like Councilwoman Kara said, we hope that this is not the last time that we engage on these issues, because these solutions that are being presented are going to have a lot of tough conversations following up, and we want you at the table having those conversations with us and the rest of the community. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman Anderson. We're excited to have those conversations. I think this group is rallied and ready to come have those conversations with you. Thank you for your support of the retro area solution, establishing the trust fund, and the inclusive, diverse, and equitable housing types and locations. Councilwoman Jones. Oh, sorry. I had my list wrong. I apologize. Councilwoman Becerra.
Thank you. First, I would like to thank Alan, Dave, and Rebecca for sharing your story with us. I think that is what makes this really impactful, collaborative, is that you bring the heart, you bring the stories to policy. So I would like to thank you for that. I am in support of all of the goals that we have set for ourselves here. I would like us to also, while we hold ourselves accountable as we work towards these goals, that we also allow ourselves some flexibility, because I think that this is a new endeavor that we're all embarking on, and we need to allow for a little bit of tweaking of all these things so that we can actually be more effective.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you for your support. I know that we're all really excited to see how this progresses through the housing policy and all the conversations we'll have on that. I know that we're ready to come to the table and have those tough conversations. So thank you very much for your support. Councilwoman West.
Hi, thanks. So I represent Ward 1, which includes the Northside neighborhoods, Rattlesnake, and downtown Missoula. And as you know, the Northside Westside is one of the other Invest Health neighborhoods, and we're also Missoula's Opportunity Zone, and also have a URD, an Urban Renewal District. And my work world, work in affordable housing. I develop permanently affordable home ownership opportunities, and I can tell you how hard it is, and I respect folks that do this work immensely in our community, and I support everything. When I met with Kaya, Stacy, and John a while ago, and we ran over these things, I was like, this is great. I love it all. What more can we do? So I would say that I think there are lots and lots of opportunities for the MRA to support affordable housing, and they have in the past, and I think we can grow and build on those things. And I also, I would like more inclusionary zoning discussions than just monitoring, and I think we're ready. So,
thank you for your emphatic support. Do you support the solutions as they've been incorporated in the recommendations for the city housing plan? Which do you support, which don't you, and then brief explanations why? You get the 2 minutes.
I get a little bit extra time.
You do.
Is it fine?
Yeah,
Okay. So I think the way that I want to answer that question is by saying that it was really heartening to get the sense from Erin and the folks who've spoken that there is no daylight between what the interest of the city council is and the interest of the community is, because we are actually one and the same. We are members of this community, and we want to do everything we can to help ensure that we have the diversity of housing types that we need in this community, and that we have housing for all who are looking for housing. So I guess that's the way I'm going to answer that question. But I do get a couple of extra minutes.
And you have to say yes to each of the points if you're going to do it, too. You get 2 minutes.
Well, I'm up here to actually speak for a couple of other people as well. And one of the things that we had talked about is wanting to share our thanks, because MIC has been an integral part of this community, dealing with the homeless issue this winter and the volunteer efforts associated with making sure that folks were safe and had a warm place to be. This effort in doing outreach in the community and trying to bring together this, a range of thoughts and interests so that we can, you guys can make a really strong contribution to the housing policy. So on behalf of Brian and Gwen, we wanted to share our thanks in that regard. And so I think the only other thing that I would like to add in this regard is that, as Julie had brought up, I think what I'm really interested in seeing happen, and I think I'm speaking for Brian and Gwen here too, is that there is a meaningful contribution from all neighborhoods to making sure that we are addressing this issue in a thoughtful way and an inclusive way. And being the chair of the Land Use and Planning Committee, a lot of the regulatory aspects that we're interested in working on are going to come through this my committee. And I think Erin was right. There are things that we can do. We're already working on them. The one thing that we want to make sure, and I know Erin and others are interested in this too, is that we're not creating two-tiered types of housing in this community. We want to make sure that we have the range of infrastructure and parks and all the other things that support a high quality of living in our community when we try to address this issue.
So, Councilor Lamar, just to summarize, since you said that the city council's thoughts and our collective housing solutions were in line, can I just assume that you were in support of all three of those solutions?
Support of all of those being considered in our housing policy. Yeah, and I've been a part of working through that, and I think they are, and Erin did a good job of describing how that.
Thank you. Commissioner Sputnik.
Thanks a lot. Can I just say yes, 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 and get to it?
Great.
All right. So it's really easy for me to say yes, 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 because you've asked if the city would take these things up. I work for the city. But what I'd really like to say is the county would like to partner with the city and help make these things. To that end, my comrade Dave Strohmeyer said he wished he could be here, but he was double booked, as it is. Okay, now I'm going to eat my 2 minutes, right? Here we go. Okay, so a couple of months ago, I was at a conference for progressive county commissioners from the West. So there were like 7 of us there. There were like less than 20. Everybody in all these counties, in Oregon, Idaho, Montana, talked about this same type of issue. And this issue doesn't really yet have a name. It's kind of the cousin of gentrification. Basically, we have created, intentionally and accidentally, really spectacularly wonderful places. People want to live in these places. So what do you know? Cost of housing skyrockets. Since people want to come here, you don't have to pay them much. Yeah, so we end up with exactly the problems we have. Talking with those 7 other progressive county commissioners from the West, I heard lots of hand-wringing and descriptions of small nonprofits working in their communities, doing the best they could. And after hearing this for a couple nights in a row, it occurred to me, this marginal issue will always remain marginal and will never really be dealt with if we leave it to the work of small, well-meaning nonprofits. We have to mainstream the issue. We have to mainstream the solutions to these issues. And that's exactly what you're talking about doing. Dealing with affordable housing part of how we do regular business. And therein lies the ultimate and long-lasting solution. So, the man will always be my mayor. Forever.
Thank you for your support.
really excited to work with the city and county to move forward with all of this. Very nice.
I was making this
You,
up.
yes, you're it. You get 2 minutes as well.
I get how many?
2 minutes. I believe you do.
2 minutes? 4? Good. I appreciate all of that. I have just enough time to cover a number of items. One is, about 40 years ago, I was confirmed in this church. This isn't the way Lutherans act. There's no whooping in church. No woo-hooing. Clearly times have changed. So I certainly support all of the concepts and the solutions that we have here before you, and I want to express gratitude to the city council members who are here and those who aren't this evening. Their absence is not any indication of their interest in moving this community forward and solving these problems. I believe fundamentally that safe, decent housing is a right of all of our friends and neighbors in this community. We created the housing office in Aaron's position in order to get us to the place where we are today, where we have solutions that we can present to the community. And the hard part, ladies and gentlemen, is next, right? It's deployment, it's implementation, and that's where we will need your voices more than we actually need them this evening in terms of confirming your support for these principles and these notions. We need you at city council meetings when the question is, do we rezone or not rezone? We need your voices at the table when we ask for additional resources to ensure that our friends and neighbors have a safe, decent place to live. We'll need your voices moving forward, and we'll need your voices in November when you have choices to make around who are stewards in implementing these policies and bringing them forward and refining them. So thank you, all of you, for your efforts here. I'm grateful to all of you. I'm grateful for the opportunity to spend a little time with you this evening, hear your stories. There are many more, and I've heard many of them, and I expect to hear more. But what I'd like to hear more of are the success stories, the ability to find that place to call home, to be safe, to be loved, to be cared for, to be comfortable, and therefore have a foundation for being fully engaged in our communities. Thank you.
I think it's just really wonderful. We've all been having these community conversations and coming up with these solutions together, working with the city office for housing to get these solutions into the housing policy, and now to have our elected officials support the 3 solutions that we came up with in those pieces. It's just really amazing and really an incredible testament to the work that's been done here. So a huge round of applause. Okay, so as many of our elected officials said, it is now time to make our own commitment to action. So much is accomplished when we act together. Over the past year and a half, we've engaged up to 3,000 people and counting in our efforts to share stories and create a network of connections that span social divisions in our community. We've come together to collaborate with groups like the Missoula Home Coalition, Welcome Back, Faith Communities Citywide, and agency affiliates, engaging in our research alongside folks who aren't experts, but who care about this work with deep intention for process. We've ratified a platform that was proactively incorporated into the city housing plan recommendations before we even got here tonight. We've engaged our city's decision makers, putting the hearts and concerns of the public will behind their votes. We've shown that everyday people certainly can and will always have a say in community decisions, such as this in Missoula, Montana. So sometimes it feels like the work is never done. Luckily, it will be our relationships that sustain us in whatever work we're doing together. So we can't have you leave without a little homework, obviously. So everyone get out your commitment cards, these bright orange things you can't miss on your pew. And I'm going to give you a second to look over them, see what's coming up. Like 15 seconds, yeah. Okay, and now we're going to go through
what's coming down. Is that the expression? Okay, so first things first, we know that our housing solutions have been included into recommendations from the City Housing Office. The City Council still needs to vote on them though. So the vote is going to happen at a to-be-determined date, but in the meantime, it is incredibly important that we commit to submitting public comments and showing up when we can to voice our stories. So, on this first line, who can commit to submitting public comments and telling a neighbor to do the same? And if you can, check the box and then hold your card up high.
Let's start. Come on now. Come on.
Not in my personal high hand. Okay. So, second, we know that future housing policies we are helping initiate are going to allow our neighbors to live in better housing conditions and be able to better afford their homes. However, we'll still have people living without homes and need a large network of people to walk alongside them. So who's willing to sit down with Zeke Camfield, Director of Housing of the MIT Housing Advocacy Network, to learn more about this program? Hold it up. Okay. Third, if we're going to really move the needle on these issues, we have a lot more work to do, right? Yeah. Okay, so getting 300 people in a room with an agreement on a set of solutions doesn't just happen overnight. We need to commit to getting stronger as a collaborative. So we need to build our organizations and train more leaders. So who wants to learn what this leadership training is all about? If you do, check the box. Oh, you're getting ahead of me. Thanks. Check the box for our leadership training for the MIT leadership training on May 22nd and May 29th from 5 to 9 p.m. both nights right here at St. Paul. And Stacey will get a hold of you. So hold your card high.
You might learn something.
Okay, so lastly, we are a collaboration of people coming together from diverse backgrounds, religious and non-religious, secular and spiritual, and what we share in common is love and concern for people, relationships, and connection. So after a long season of action together, we need time to celebrate. We want to invite you to Tangible Hope at the Wilma. This is a music and story-driven experience that is guaranteed to bring life and energy to our efforts as a collaboration. Tickets are in the back. Does anyone have waves if you have them? Perfect. First in the red vest. Who's going to be there next Thursday? Raise your card. Woo! Sweet. Cool. Well, friends, we have made great strides tonight. I can't wait to see what's in store for us going forward. And now I'm going to turn it over to Lori to wrap us up.
I was so excited to greet you that I forgot to tell you who I was. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Lori Franklin. I am the rabbi at Har Shalom. So now you know. Here's the thing. We're going to do good work. And there's baskets in the back for the cards. And there's refreshments downstairs so we can get to know each other better. Please go in love and peace, and we will continue this work together. Thank you. And a big thank you to Todd Trimble for opening with the music, and to Lori Harris for her song and guitar. Thank you.
Thank you.